Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips and picks. I am your host, Professor Side. It's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I've built to predict various sports outcomes is affectionately known as Sideline. You'll hear more about the model during the course of this episode, set to cover select college basketball games scheduled to be played on Friday, January 20th, 2023. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new. For some explanations and community rules. This episode will only cover what are determined to be the best, most interesting games, although again, in the overtime segment, we have got a doozy for you. Another game I cannot wait to talk about just because of how terrible it'll be. But for all the Model A grade plays, you have to join Patreon at the $5 or higher level. That also gets you access to the Discord chat. That is the best place to get questions answered about these or other games or other sports or just random discussions and lots of just like GIF wars. It's a lot of fun over there. But as always, remember, there are no locks in gambling. So what Sideline provides are loves, likes, and leans. It is A, B, and C grades, or rather plays it really wants you to make. Plays where it can't quite get there, but a better number or price would do it, and toss-up games. The results for all recommended picks, the ones in the show, the Model A grade plays, and all the plays today, you can find both on BetStamp, although, again, we're still having a little bit of an issue with them getting the BetOnline line. So mostly on BetStamp and in the Google Sheet. The links are in the show description. That Google Sheet also contains the full set of model projections on every single game. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Lastly, please understand that good and bad events will occur. So as much as we'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, good to see you back here. Cousin Jared, coming out of the bullpen yesterday for you. Giving you a day off, a little day of rest.
Totally appreciate it. It's nice to get another voice in there every once in a while too.
Yeah, absolutely. I always have enjoyed the difference of the different perspectives that y'all provide. It's always fun to just kind of have something a little bit different there. I think across all sports, I think we all kind of have a slightly different angle on it. It's always fun to mix and match. We got 14 games on this Friday, and some of them are bad. Some of them are mediocre. I feel like if it's mediocre, we got you covered today. Like, this is your place to be for where to watch Friday's mediocre and above games, because I feel like that's the highest compliment I can give a couple of these.
Oh, Lord, it's a stretch to call mediocre at some point.
I mean, we don't want the people to tune off, right? I mean, we have to try to upsell it a little bit. we got the five best, whatever that is.
It doesn't have to be a great game to make money on it. Just, sometimes it's nice to wake up the next morning and see that bankroll increase. Like, yeah, that was nice.
And the number of times I've said it, we don't have to watch them to make the monies, right? So that's definitely the case here. A couple interesting games. One to wrap up tonight that I think will be really good. But before we get to all that, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you are yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content this channel provides. Already mentioned the Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits we found over there above and beyond what we do here. $3 per month gets you the play of the day. For another $2 a month, you get all the model grade picks and access to the Discord chat group. And for $5 more, you get ad-free shows and immediate access to every recommended pick. Go to www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor for more details. But even if you're not there, we're still thrilled to have you here. Let's get to all on courtesy of BetOnline. Sign up link in the show description and current at the time of this recording here on Thursday afternoon. 5:30 p.m. Central. We're going to start off with some action. Ball State and Kent State. Kent State, we've backed them 9 times this year. 9-0. Every time we've backed them, they've covered. We faded them 8 times, and we've gone 3-5 doing it. The issue here is this number of 9, to me, is just a really tough one. If it could be 7, I would be down with laying 7 with Kent State. Y'all know 7's kind of my tipping point of where I like to play numbers at here. And when you get to lay 9, there's just so many weird backdoor things that can happen at this point. Kent State's a better team, and they're at home, so they should win. It's just, I think it's priced fairly well at 9. So instead, we're going to focus on the total. It's 139. We're going to go under that number. The main thing here is about Kent State and the fact that they're going to be going up against a pretty good Ball State offense, but Kent State's defense is the thing here that's going to drive them to a win and keep us under this total. The model is 138.7. But both of these teams have been staying under model projections pretty solidly for the last month or so. And so I think that's probably a little bit too high. I really think 136, 137 is probably where we land up, more that mid-130s than anything else. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, like the Kent State team you pointed out has been very good to us all year. That their defense is just on another level. I mean, and for some reason, the MAC as a conference doesn't like to share the ball. It's like a lot of one-on-one play. Like even Kent State themselves doesn't like to do that. But doing that against a defense that is as good as Kent State is a disaster waiting to happen. I pointed that out last time. It worked out well for us. Unless you have like LeBron or KD playing a lot of one-on-one stuff, not going to go well. Ball State. Decent offense, not good enough to solve this defense. Their defense is about the same way. They give up the three ball at a high rate, but Kent State doesn't like the three ball. They're nowhere near a good 3-point shooting team. Ball State will hit threes, but they're just not they just don't shoot them. They like to go to the hole a lot more, and it's weird. They depend on getting to the line to score most of their points, but which is bad for them right now because they're sub 70% free throw shooting team. So that means you got to get to the line a lot. Like that's almost a quarter of their points. They depend on that. And Boise State has been better recently about fouling. They were one of the teams that fouled a lot, but they're just not. They're getting better at that right now, and their offense does well at not turning it over and hitting their free throws, but Kent State's offense not very good. They are well below average in field goal percentage, effective field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. They don't rebound the ball particularly well either. I think it's going to be a struggle to get these teams anywhere near 70 tonight.
Absolutely. It should be a Kent State really showing off their great defense, I guess is what I should say. One of those where, again, when we look at the 4 units on the court between each team's offense and defense, the Kent State defense is by far and away the best unit. And so in a situation like that arises, you kind of have to look under unless the number's too low, and this number isn't low enough. 139 is about the average number of points in a college basketball game, but Kent State's defense should keep it on that. Again, they've been really good to us, so it's one of those I feel like when we've said back home, it's gone great. This one, just the number's a little bit too high. If it could be lower, I could endorse it. But they haven't covered every game this year, and the ones that they haven't covered have been some of these where the numbers just gotten a little bit out too much on them, and this is probably one of those situations, the under the safest bet here. So the 6 p.m. games, we've got 2 of them for you today. First one, VCU at Richmond, going to go over 131. Mainly on this one because of the fact that VCU has all of a sudden kind of turned it up a notch and really started scoring a lot of points lately. And I don't really see why that changes here tonight. Looking back over the last several games of these two teams playing comparable type teams, has the feel of more of a game that should get into the mid 130s than stay down below 130. So we're going to go over here. With regards to the side, it's a real toss-up situation. The model needs 3 points with either team before it takes them. It's not drastically dissimilar from a game here that we talked about recently. I don't remember which one it was. There was some other game that was like a pick'em like this, and I said we needed 3 points, and the game should have landed right at 3 points. Arkansas, Missouri, that's the one where I said we needed 3 points with either team, and it lands right on 3, and you can see exactly why we want 3 points. And that's this game right here. It should be a fantastic contest, but right now it's around a pick'em -1 to one side or the other, but just not a situation that I think is profitable right now to back either side. VCU's the better team, but on the road, who the heck knows, unless you're giving me 3 points or good plus odds on either side. I take plus odds with either team on this one. But we're not getting that right now, so instead we're going to go over 131 and trust that VCU's newfound offensive prowess and the way they've really upped the tempo here in conference play that continues and gets us more towards a normal amount of points in a college basketball game than staying in the 120s. Just got to get out of the 120s, and we got a really good shot, of course, to win this one. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a very intriguing matchup from the standpoint of like the paces of both teams, where VCU wants to go fast, Richmond wants to go slow. Both teams are just completely different from every aspect that they play. VCU is very aggressive with the ball. VCU very aggressive with the ball. Richmond not so much. They rather take their time, fill you out. Shoot a lot more jump shots. Don't worry about the offensive rebounds. They head back to set up their defense because that's where they play best. I think VCU is really going to be the driving force here. Their aggressive offense leads to more fouls, and VCU hits a really good amount of their free throws. Richmond loves to shoot the 3 ball. If that goes in, great. We get to count by 3s instead of 2s. If it's not, typically it's a long rebound that leads to easy buckets. So I really think that's going to be a lot of the over and where a lot of this pace comes from. It should be hard for this. These teams are going to be really, really good. It's going to be a really, really good game. I really see this game being like low 70s to upper 60s kind of game, and gets us well over this 131 number.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about Richmond shooting all the three balls. It's a situation where, you know, if the other team is not pushing the pace, you're very all in on Richmond having to make the threes to get the over. That's what we talk about those correlated parlays, right? That's where the same game parlay, not the gimmicky weird odd ones, the traditional, plus 260 parlay can be really effective when you have something like that where you're like, I'm banking on one thing to happen. If that one thing happens, it helps both, right? If the other team's not going to push the pace, you kind of need them to hit the three, and then you kind of back the side and take the over and say, if they hit the threes, I'm going to win both. And so my probability is higher than the payout. In this case, though, we don't actually need them to hit the threes because the other team is going to push the pace. It's not like VCU is going to get a long rebound and just kind of sit back and hold it instead of their offense, which some teams do. Instead, they're going to go really fast and try to get quick buckets. So we should either be counting by threes or quick twos the other way, which helps get with the over. The other thing, the last thing I want to add on this one is just we always talk about with tempo differences. Can the one team slow them down? And it's not that Richmond's defense isn't, good, because it is. It's just that VCU seems to be kind of playing at such an aggressive pace that other teams haven't really been able to slow them down. And that doesn't mean that VCU's won every game, of course. They've won a lot. But they've mostly just been able to kind of play the style of game that they want to. Even against teams that want to slow them down. And I don't really see how that is drastically different here. Not going to be a game like we're going to talk about one later tonight that the next two, really, we expect a lot more points in. But it should be able to get over into the 130s. We think maybe even up towards, like you said, maybe 140 to get us the over. The other 6 p.m. Central game, expecting a lot more points in this one. Villanova at St. John's. Total in this one is 151.5. The model says 150.5. It's a pass on the total, mainly because the style of play discrepancies really are going in two completely different directions. These two teams have already played. Villanova won at home handily and did keep it more their style of ball, keeping it lower scoring. If St. John's has their way, they obviously want to play a faster game. St. John's has played well, seemingly, though, struggling against the teams that want to really slow them down. That's why we're going to take Villanova +4 here. Model says 3.5 and gives Villanova +4 a B grade. To me, the bottom line is I don't think Villanova is that good, but I'm not sure that St. John's isn't being a little bit overvalued because of that most recent win against UConn. And we're getting a couple extra points of value here. This should really be more like 2 or 3 in reality. Again, the model still says 3.5, but in reality, I think 2 to 3 is where this number should be. And to me, the bottom line is when you look back at the first matchup, the home court matters to some extent, absolutely. But when you look at what St. John's did, even if you give them the average 3-point percentage between what they normally shoot and what Villanova normally allows, and give them some extra threes that they didn't hit in that game, they still lose by, I think, 12. And even if you then flip the home court, they still lose by probably 4 or 5, maybe 6. And so I'm not saying that Villanova wins by 6. I'm just saying what Villanova did that game was more, it wasn't just bad 3-point luck from St. John's. I think stylistically, the way St. John's wants to play is just so counter to Villanova that Villanova, at least in that last game, showed us that they can handle that and really frustrate St. John's. That's the game plan they want to use here. Getting 4 points, I think, is too much. It should be a great contest. St. John's, a little bit of an edge at home, but there's a lot of ways that St. John's wins a tight contest here by 1, 2, or 3 points. We still win the bet, or maybe 4 and it pushes. But I think Villanova +4 is just too good to pass up. Jake, I know it pains you to not be backing St. John's since they're your boys, but they're not going to cover every game, right? They got to not cover one of them. So let's hope they don't cover this one.
Yeah, like I love, everybody knows I love this team. I love the way they play. They're fun. They're fun to watch, and they're also happen to be a good team. But this Villanova is the kryptonite to them. Villanova, the way they want to play offense is slow you down, so they can control the pace because they're not dependent on their defense stopping you. It's just okay, we'll take it and we'll crawl up the floor and we're going to work it till we get a shot. And St. John's doesn't have a lot of patience. They're like a little kid, really, and I think that's what they run into problems because St. John or Villanova's slowing it down so much. They force stuff on the offensive end. They're not a great 3-point shooting team, and they don't shoot a lot of them. But for some reason against Villanova, they do because they're trying to get that pace going, and Villanova is very stubborn and won't go. Turnover battle is going to be huge. Like Villanova, as different of a team they are this year than under Jay Wright, they still don't turn the ball over. Refuse to do it. That's going to be huge because St. John's gets a lot of points from turnovers, and that's when they get their points in bunches because they just get you, especially at home. Like that crowd and everything gets you. If you can survive that, you have a good chance of beating
and
them.
that's where some of that tempo comes from, right? Getting a turnover and a quick bucket, all of a sudden it's 6 seconds later, and boom, just another bucket on you, right?
Yeah, and then the offensive glass is going to be huge. Like St. John's is one of the better offensive rebounding teams, and like Soriano, very very good player, cleans up a lot of their misses. But Villanova handled him last time. I mean, he led the team in scoring, but they handled everybody else enough that it didn't matter. He also had some offensive rebounds, a good chunk of them, but nobody else did. So they really just were like, okay, you're going to have to beat us by scoring twos, and Villanova really handled it. They're just a smart play here. I lean towards the over, but it's a high number. Don't really recommend it. I just like it. I think the game's going over, but Villanova is a smart play. I think there's a good chance they win this outright just because of how much they counter St. John's.
Yeah, plus odds there would be something to look at as well. Maybe splitting your wager a little bit, 1/4, 3/4, 1/3, 2/3, something like that. And it's interesting, Villanova, their struggles on defense this year, they figured out a way to stop St. John's, which is impressive in and of itself. But part of it could be like talking about the three ball, that the three ball is such a big part of so many teams' games. And if you're going to allow a ton of threes and you got a good 3-point shooting team, they're able to shoot threes on Villanova all day long. And St. John's tried to take a bunch. It didn't work. And again, it's not that even if they had shot their normal percentage, it wasn't like it was going to help them out that much because, like you said, they're not a great 3-point shooting team. So I think Villanova was very happy saying, we're going to not let you get into the paint and get layups and easy buckets. We're going to force you to shoot a bunch of threes. And that's not really what St. John's wants to do. It's not what they're good at. And they could do that. Again, remember, right, there's no locks in gambling. They could do that here on Friday night and make a bunch of them, right? If they shoot 45% from three, they're going to win handily, right? But we don't count on that because it's not kind of what they've been doing. So assuming they don't have that sort of performance, if Villanova forces all those three-pointers, again, grinds it out, slows it down, frustrates St. John's, you got to think they've got an edge just like they exhibited in the first game.
Yep, for sure.
To the game that it might not be the best game of the night, but my goodness, it should be the first one. I'm just going to start off. We're going to go over 170. I have one rule in college basketball, and it's if you see a total with 170, you go over. Period. And there's a reason for that. There are a lot of, we all know how sportsbooks operate. They take information in and they adjust and move lines based off of that. Sometimes they set lines based off the information they think they're going to use. Now, there are different styles and different factors and different books do different things. And some of the books don't actually care about the money part of it. They care about who it's from and what it means. And they can have giant bets from people that are losing players, and they won't move the number one big. So other books will take a bunch of money from a losing player, and they still want to move it because they do want to balance the books a little bit more. So there's no one right strategy. But here's what I do know. There are a lot of large money groups that will see a number like this and they will blind bet the under because they have the principle of their math will say under 170 no matter what. And I think what happens is this game actually should be priced higher, but there's a cap on it because of the way the sports books are managing this game. That doesn't mean it won't go under, right? Because again, there's no locks in gambling. You never know if these two teams just come out cold. That'll be tough, right? But I'm thinking about that Arkansas-Missouri game where we went over 154, 155, whatever, it gets to 155 after Missouri scored 6 points in the first 11 minutes, and it still got there. This game is going to be even more bonkers with regards to the pace, the offense, and the lack of defense. I mean, when you look at these two teams, they haven't really played teams like each other, but when they've played teams close to it, most of the scores, they're getting up into the 90s, they're getting up to 100, they're giving up 80. I mean, this feels like 90 to 80 is like the minimum of what you'd expect here. I mean, a good chance somebody gets to 100, a good chance both get into the 90s. Bottom line here is there's just going to be so much pace in this game, so much offense, and so little defense. And so, again, it's about the number, and I know it's a really large number, but I'm going to kind of make the contrarian play and say, I know there's just so many people who are going to blind bet the under, but in this situation, I think it's capped. I think the total really should be more about 173, 174, 175, because I really think we can get both these teams up closer to 90 in this one. And we're also going to lay the floor with Toledo. I often say we're not just playing teams or we're not just playing numbers. We're playing numbers and teams. In this case, I'm kind of just playing the number. I really just like laying a number like 4. I mentioned it in yesterday's show. I think there's a good chance Toledo's the better team on the road, gets the win. And there's a lot of ways we could win 4 in a high-scoring game with all the points that'll be scored, all the buckets. They could easily just pull away in the second half, or there should be late game fouling, and we can get over this number. So it's really about, I just think laying 4 is a great opportunity since Toledo is the much better team. Jake, what's your insight on this one?
Yeah, look, diving into this game is just wild. Buffalo scored below 75 total times this year, and those were against very slow defensive-minded teams like Michigan State and stuff like that. They've also scored.
But they still gave up almost 90 to Michigan State, which seems impossible.
Yeah, they've also scored above 96 times this year. Toledo has the better, more efficient offense, but they've led up 85 points 3 times this year, or 5 times this year, and won 3 of them. Like, that is a ridiculous stat that you're giving up 85 points and somehow winning more than you lose. That's just so many points everywhere. Neither team really turns the ball over. Toledo, a very good shooting team. Buffalo has the better defense but worse offense. But I don't think that's going to matter. You're not going to see anybody get in the way of anybody here. The biggest difference is going to be the threes and the free throw line, and that's where the game's going to be decided. And both those things go Toledo's way. I think this could be very similar to that Kansas State Texas game that put up 200 points. That really wouldn't shock me if that happened in this game. And Toledo winning by 5 seems about right.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna call my shot here. I'm gonna say 90-85 is the final score of this one. So Toledo wins by 5, and we get over comfortably. It should be a lot of fun. I feel like you're gonna have to have this game on your television just because of the pure chaos that we should see. And again, we may see a situation like that Arkansas Missouri thing where there's a stretch without many points, but you're gonna blink. And in that Missouri game, that's what happened. You blinked. It was like 2 minutes, and Missouri had like 12 more points in 2 minutes. You're like, how does one team, not at the end of the game, do that, right? And that's what we're going to see here. Even if one team goes cold for a little bit, you're going to get some points in a hurry. It should be a lot of fun, a must-see game, which takes us to the game of the night, standalone game here, 10 p.m. Central. I guess the previous one's kind of a standalone game too once the other one's in because there's no 8 o'clock games. So double standalone game here. Boise State at New Mexico should be a fantastic one. New Mexico's a 1.5 point favorite, 2 point favorite. Sideline says 2 and still leans New Mexico. That's the way I would lean just because they're at home. And we've seen New Mexico probably compares fairly well with talent to Nevada. We saw Nevada's already played Boise twice this year, and Nevada won at home and lost on the road. And so if you had to make me, I would say I would take New Mexico State or New Mexico here at home. Boise's played so well, though, it's not a play that I want to make. I just want to watch for this. Who wins this? It should be a great game. I love the way both these teams are playing. If you've been backing these two teams for the most part blindly, you've done really well. If you've picked your spots, you've done even better. So we're going to focus on the over. It's the same play we made last time Boise played. They're shooting the ball really well. They're scoring a lot of points. New Mexico has a great offense and plays at a really fast pace and doesn't really have that good of a defense. So, I don't quite see why this is 143. The model says 145, but I honestly kind of think we get more up to 150. Just when you look at the results of Boise State lately, we mentioned against Nevada, and that game had like almost 90 points in the first half. It slowed down a little bit because Boise State won by so much. But otherwise, that game it still went over, and it was going to fly over. And I think the same thing here, except I don't think Boise State wins this one by 20. And so I think getting a full half of basketball for both teams, I think 150 is more likely than 140 in this one. I love the over. Again, I wish I could be invested in a side. I just love both these teams. I think they're great. I think it's well priced. Boise's a better team, but on the road, I have no idea who's going to win. But over 143, I think is a fantastic investment. Jake, what do you got for us?
Yeah, the over is crazy. The books just have not caught up to how good Boise State's offense is, especially once they got in the conference play. If you take it down to just the conference games, they are the most efficient offense in the Mountain West, and they're the best three-point shooting team. That includes Utah State, who's shooting lights out all year. Yeah. But in conference play, Boise State has been killing it. This game is going to be incredible to watch. That's why it's going to be really tough to pick a side because this is really going to be a battle. So I agree. Stay away from that. Just watch it, cheer for points because New Mexico plays really fast, has a really good offense, not great on defense. Neither team turns the ball over. They hit their free throws, and there's not going to be a lot of second chance opportunities. Neither one is really big on offensive rebounds, but So there's not going to be a lot of extra possessions created, but it's going to be a lot of anytime it's fouled, the ball's going in, a lot of and one kind of stuff because the way these teams like to play, they're very physical. The foul situation really going to be something to watch because New Mexico really depends on getting free throws. It's like I said, they're up there right around a quarter of their points or percentage of their points comes from the free throw line. Boise being on the road and being a little more aggressive and a little better on the defensive end that's really going to help out, I think, because they're going to get points while the clock stopped because ref whistles, as much as they don't want to admit it, home crowds affect them. Nobody wants to be booed. Nobody wants to be yelled at all night. So there's going to be a few calls that are going to go New Mexico's way that are 50-50. That's really going to help us with points.
Yeah, and I think you made a good comment there. Boise State does have a good defense. It's not to say they don't. But I wonder if there's a little bit of an issue with people's modeling, the sportsbooks modeling or whatever, where they're looking more at just point differentials and not the actual breaking it down to offense and defense. And I know the models look at that, but I just wonder if they're a little bit not focused enough on isolating offense versus defense, because looking at like, oh, Boise's playing well. And it's like, if you're in reality, I think it's their defense hasn't been that impressive. I think that the defense has been solid, but it's been the offense. It's been incredible. And so it's almost like I wonder how many models, and I don't know, I'm purely speculating. I wonder how many models have given Boise an overall boost with how well they've played. And really it should be no boost to the defense and just a massive boost to the offense. And that would then drive the total up. But like you said, it's like the books and the modeling hasn't caught up with this Boise team and how many points they're scoring. Like I said, we got that over in their last game, and the same thing here. Like until it catches up or we see some change, I feel like riding these Boise overs is the smart way to go, which is crazy because I'm pretty sure last year we were riding their unders because they were playing slow, good defense, and now it's like the exact opposite.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's having a lot more to do with what the book's number is. Yeah. Like you talked about, I believe you were speaking about, like a good book or good model and stuff holds on to priors. Yep. Well, this is one of the cases where I think that's hurting you because the team is so different than what they were last year.
Yeah, absolutely. In general, I think you should hold on to your priors about 2 out of 3 times. It's just you got to figure out those 1 out of 3 where you shouldn't. And so, in general, if you don't know, hold on to your priors, because on average, it's better to do that than not do that. If you, in general, throw it all out the window, you're going to, on the whole, do worse. That's been shown mathematically. But yeah, there are times when where you're gonna have to really de-weight them and throw them out. And I think this is one of those where it's just so different from last year. The overs have been good to us. We're going to keep riding that, which takes us to overtime. And boy, do we have a doozy for you here. The battle for St. Francis, New York at St. Francis, the battle of St. Francis, battle for, I don't know, whichever one you want, roll with it, right? This is going to be terrible. I'm sure it's on ESPN Plus or like streaming online somewhere, but it shouldn't be. It's going to be a horrible game. Somehow these teams have a combined 16 wins, but neither one of them are good. I think the defenses are less good than the offenses. And I use that word specifically, that phrasing specifically. The Pacers should be pretty average, pretty representative. You do have a little bit of discrepancy between the two teams, but overall, I'm expecting a pretty normal paced game. It's just, I think the defenses are worse than the offenses. That should allow us to get a few more points. We're going to go over 139 in this one. I think it's a pretty solid investment, given that 139 is, again, the average number of points. But the looks should get better because of how bad the defenses are. Jake, I can't believe we're talking about this game, but here we are.
This pains me to talk about. I mean, St. Francis, Pennsylvania, PA, their defense is so bad. Yeah. Like if you start really diving into the numbers, their average length of possession on the defense is one of the shortest out there. And that is because it's so easy to get a good look. I mean, their opponent's effective field goal percentage is well above 50. They don't force you to turn the ball over. They don't guard the 3-point arc. They really don't guard you inside it.
I was like, I don't think they guard you anywhere, really, to be honest.
It's just crazy when you start going through the numbers and how bad they are. And then I think it's going to be so easy to score. Like, it's not going to be hard for, say, for instance, New York to score, who's got a slightly better defense, but a slightly worse offense. So It's just, I don't know. Like, say, for instance, New York doesn't want to hold on to the ball. They don't want to take a good shot. They want to make sure you guard them. That's their offensive strategy. They really want you to give a defensive practice.
That doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't. I don't think these teams are playing basketball correctly.
Whoosh. Shots fired. I
Well,
thought I was harsh.
This whole Northeastern Conference, they're just
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. But yeah, the over is the right play because nobody's stopping anybody. It's going to be a lot of easy shots given up and should be layup lines for the most part.
There's a reason this conference tends to find itself in one of the first 4 games. It's not very strong. There's a reason why it's part of the 6-digit rotation games. Not a lot of good things happening in this conference. But I think the point you made there is really the one that drove home the over for me is the fact that St. Francis, New York has longer possession lengths. And when you have a bad basketball team, and again, they've won 9 games, that's scheduling. And this is what we talked about with Monmouth. How do you only have 1 win? Because if you're scheduling for St. Francis, New York allows you to get 9. Right, they're not that. Those 2 teams aren't that different. But St. Francis takes a long time on offense, relatively speaking. Part of that you have to assume is trying to make sure you're getting a good shot. Well, that shouldn't be. I have good news. That shouldn't be a problem for you here against St. Francis PA. They, like you said, they're constantly giving up good looks, and so I think knowing St. Francis, I think knowing how New York. I think knowing how bad their offense is, it would be pretty foolish to pass up a good look. I think they're going to get good looks early on in the shot clock, and you got to take them because your offense is bad. You cannot afford to pass it up. And that's the difference between St. Francis, New York playing slower and a team like Virginia playing it slower. Virginia knows they have talent and they can generate good shots late into the shot clock. So they don't mind passing it around and making an extra pass for a slightly better shot and an extra pass for a slightly better shot and an extra pass for a slightly better. That's the way they go slow because they can get that efficiency because they know they can keep getting better looks the more they make those passes, right? That's not what we're seeing here, right? We're seeing a team who just can't get a good look, and so they don't take it. But when they get a good look, they've got to go for it, which is going to mean they're shooting earlier in the shot clock. They're missing. It doesn't really matter because then you turn it over to the team that's going to play faster, should create some tempo in this one, a little bit above average tempo because of that. And again, the defense is being so bad should give bad offenses good looks. And that's exactly what you need in order to get points because otherwise the offenses are bad. It's like, yeah, but they're going to get good looks. And that's going to really help here. So I feel like this can get more into the mid 140s up towards 150 rather than staying down at this number.
I mean, St. Francis just gave up, or St. Francis, New York just gave up 66 to Long Island, who I'm not sure they know the shape of a basketball with how well their offense plays. But it's I just don't think there's going to be anybody standing in anybody's way near it. I think it's just going to rain points from just law of large numbers, enough shots go up.
Absolutely, definitely a law of large numbers get here with the tempo. Just throwing shots out everywhere here. Long Island, one of the worst offenses in college basketball. So there we go. Now we've insulted a team that isn't even one of the games we've covered. So I guess that's a good show for us, right?
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what I'm here for.
All right. Well, that's all the games we're going to cover here for your Friday. Jake, any parting words before we get to the weekend?
No, I know I throw a lot of shots out there. Well, I wouldn't need to throw this out there. Every one of those players could beat me 21-0 if we played one-on-one.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm not thinking I'm some great basketball player that can handle it.
Absolutely. I feel like we haven't said that enough lately. I try to say that once a month or so for new people coming in, that we sometimes throw shade at basketball players, at football players, at baseball players, and they're all infinitely better than we are. If your families are listening to this, we don't mean to insult. We're simply saying relative to the other people there. But yes, they all are much better than we are. And as much as I joke about, last night, I believe it was in the Oklahoma game, at the end of the game, it looked like, guys from the crowd basically coming and playing, just like dribbling off their legs, just looked terrible offensively. And I'm making jokes about it, but they still are much better than I would. I would be a scared little boy out there against those tall dudes, and I would be terrible. So yes, they're all much better than us, but we do have to throw some shade every once in a while with the asterisk of, yes, y'all would all destroy us in basketball. They'd probably all destroy us in other sports too, because they're all much more athletic in general than we are, and probably in everything.
Yes, probably.
All right. Well, that's what I've got here for you today. Thanks for tuning in this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy the sports betting content we've got on this channel, shoved right into your feed. Be back again tomorrow with more college basketball betting content. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.